Welcome back to Self Love and Sweat, the podcast. Today, my guest is my neighbor, my new neighbor since moving to Utah, Brysen Partridge. And we met because one of my friends was visiting, and we were at the park one day, and my friend and Brysen met and became friends. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, you have to meet Brysen. He's awesome. He's like on this healing journey. You guys would totally resonate." And to be honest, I was kind of like, when I first moved here, I was like, no, I don't want to meet anybody. I just want to do my thing. I just want to work on myself. I just don't need any friends at the moment. And I was a little bit anti, just to be honest. And then I'm so grateful that Kara was adamant that we met, because you've truly changed my life. I can't imagine being in Utah without your friendship. And you've introduced me to your group of friends. You know, you're the reason why now I go to the breathwork and cold plunge place that I go to. And I feel like you've opened up my mind and my heart to it's really hard making friends as adults. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's I've moved around a lot, and it's not always easy making close friends and good friends as an adult. It's kind of weird. It's you're playing in kindergarten all over again. But I feel the second you and I met, we just automatically clicked. I know we'll be friends for ever. I'm calling that now. And it was actually your idea, Brysen, to do this podcast, because him and I will often walk together around the lake. And these are the types of conversations you and I have all the time. So it's kind of just putting a microphone to the conversations that you and I always have. So thank you for being here, and thank you for you.
No, thank you. I mean, it was just a great way how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only grown. I think we called that out when we were walking around the lake one time. We were laughing because we said that we're going to be lifetime friends.
Yeah.
We just knew it because our conversations go so deep and so just genuine. It blew my mind when we were just talking and met, and just it continues to grow.
Yeah. And I remember the first time you and I hung out after I had met you, when we were all hanging out with my friend Kara, we went stand-up paddleboarding.
Yeah.
And it was in the evening, and we just went stand-up paddleboarding, and you immediately opened up about your pain, which I thought was so awesome, because I think sometimes people, and those listening probably, you kind of are hesitant, most people, to share and expose what's really going on in your life and what's really hard. And you were not that way at all. It was this is who I am. This is what I've gone through. And I know that that's what we're going to dive into and talk about today, because you were in real estate, and then you've started this tech software company. But I know, because we talk all the time, that it's not because you had this easy road and it was just ooh, tech startup and smooth sailings. I know you've gone through a lot of shit. And I know that when we kind of set our intention of what we wanted to talk about today on the podcast, it was let's talk about the real shit. And so I'm just going to pass it over to you. What has your journey been like? What have the last 5 or 6 months, years been like for you? And what do you feel has led you up to this moment?
Ooh, I don't even know how to start with that one, because let's just say 2023 has been one for the records. And now we always have 1 year, but this year I can't put it on a scale, because starting this year, I started this year working as a different company I've been working for the last 3 years. So I'm working my company totally for almost 4 years. Started it and went with a different partner that was out of Texas, and he wasn't doing his stuff. I trusted him so much to do his thing that we were doing and get beta clients and grow, because our vision that we built was there. And after months of him always throwing things aside, not letting things actually be productive, and me always fighting with it, because, hey, this is going to be done soon. This is going to be done soon. This is going to be done soon. He never did it. So eventually, towards the end of May and June of this year, I had to cut ties and just drop it. So this project, my baby that I've had for 3 years, that one thing in life where you really, there's so many ideas where you have an idea and you're oh, I should have acted on that. It's the dumbest thing. And you see it 5 years later, someone did it on TV, you're they're worth millions now. I had that idea 5 years ago, because you never took action on it. this is that idea in my software company that I took that action and ran with it, and presented this to my partner in 2020. And I called him out of the blue, just on a personal cell, and said, hey, do you want to do this concept? Do you want to do this idea? He's like, hell yeah. I'm like, all right, let's develop this. Built it. Then come end of 2022, launch, go live. And he's like, hey, we just beta clients, let's go live. Then came to that same progress. Didn't do his continued work, and we had clients that weren't asking for things. So I shut things down with him in May and June, and I was devastated. Like, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars and hours spent for nothing. And that vision, that act that I took, that leap was gone. And on top of it, I got a different job offer to kind of help subsidize, because I've only been just paying this out of pocket. And we worked for them for one day, and they fired me because I thought I was still working for this different company, or a conflict of interest. Then to add on top of that, I lost the love of my life that I've been with for a year and a half with that, and just devastated. So doing all this stuff, I remember looking at my bank account in June, or end of June, 1st of July, I had negative $10.87. No cash around the house anymore. Credit cards maxed. Like, I've been working this journey for 3 years with no other pay. I'm like, how do I even feed my kids? Like, what do they need gas to go pick them up? I'm at a breaking point. And I didn't know what to do. I was in the biggest hole that I've ever been in my life. And it still brings me so emotional still with it, because it was so impactful and hard. Most people at that point, when you lose all three of those pillars, and my health wasn't the best. I was okay, but I was drinking a ton, trying to numb, to try and figure things out. I remember sitting on the porch at 6:30 in the morning, still drinking wine. It wasn't that I woke up and drank. I didn't sleep. How mind-blowing is that? It just could not sleep because all this stuff's going on. And finally had the idea thankfully from my partner overseas, that I worked with him before, my developing guy. He called me. He's like, dude, what happened? We're so close. I know. We ran out of this because this and this wasn't done. And he's like, what if we try and do it? I was like, are you willing to do that with me? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can find. Let me see what cash I can find. So thankfully, this might bring me to tears a little bit. Thankfully, my dad, I called him out of the blue, and he knows of my journey. He knows what I've been doing. And I called him like, hey, I need some cash, and not just some cash. I need a decent chunk to restart and rebuild. Because if I restart, rebuild, then I have this opportunity to go either one, get my customers and go, or two, find investors that are already going to look at me that really fund us fully. And I remember talking to him, and he's like, okay, let me see what I can do. He went and did something above and beyond, I should say, just cashed out one of his huge shares of stocks. He's a super, super conservative guy. Super, no risk whatsoever kind of person. Cashed out one of his 401ks and gave me a big chunk of money. It wasn't what I really needed or wanted, but enough. I'm like, okay, this will do. And I remember sitting first part of July or mid-July on my computer for 17, 18 hours straight, just working and building the new software, because if I built it better and defined it better to my dev team, there's less dev conversations back and forth, so that it gets done quicker. So every little button, everything that did something, everything that was linked to something, everything that was linked to a different aggregator or contract or something was listed, and just made it so clear as much as I possibly could. So it's not doing any kind of the rework or redevelopment with anything. And I remember a couple of days, I was at my desk with all these sticky notes. I come from a tech guy. You should always have it online, but sticky notes help break down your buckets. So I had all these sticky notes all over my desk, and just crossed one off at a time. But there was probably 20 to 30 sticky notes all over my computers, monitors, everything you could possibly think of. And just one at a time. Checked, 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 and kept moving forward. And it was just, I remember just one morning just sobbing, just pretty much crying, like so overwhelmed. And I had no support. I had no one like that partner that I had in my life that was gone, like, had no support whatsoever. I have amazing friends if you've met now, but it's still different when you don't have that light, that partner that was there that like back you. Like you don't have that. I didn't have it. And I just remember just like crying, like overwhelmed.
Just like rock bottom.
Rock bottom. And all I had was my little sticky notes.
And so one at a time, it was just like sticky note, do it, toss it.
Sticky note, toss it. Sticky note, toss it. Sticky note, toss it. Just moving forward that way. And I really started a different kind of journey in the mornings too, of really getting up. I always got up early. I'm always a morning person.
Yeah, you are.
But I stepped that up a little bit more and really got up to like, okay, I'm going to get up and follow more of the Miracle Mornings style. Get up. I don't touch my phone in the morning as much, which is weird because I don't sleep often because my dev team's 12 hours different than me. So I'm always getting pinged at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. But when I wake up in the morning, when I'm getting up, I don't check my phone or go into things too deep. I don't check social, don't check my emails. I'll wake up and I instantly come downstairs, drink some water, and I go for a walk. I do an hour walk every morning now, just listening to books. I think I'm on my 26th book now in the last 5 months.
Yeah, you read a ton. And I know that about you because we're neighbors. So we like walk the same loop. And there's like this like unspoken agreement. I don't think you and I have ever talked about this, but like your first walk is for you. And so there was one time when we were walking and I like passed by you, but I just like not knew better. It was early, whatever. But I was like, oh no, this is like not the time to be like, what's up, Brysen? How's it going? How's your day? It was just kind of like, what's up? And keep walking. And I love that you take that time for you and you're a bookworm. Like I love how many books you read and how much you fly through books and how much wisdom you gain from them.
And this is new. So to anyone that wants to really know, like anyone can do this kind of stuff. This is new. Like I'm not a reader whatsoever.
Well, now you are.
First book, cover to cover. I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I read my first book, cover to cover, when I was almost 20. Because I flew through high school, all these, I faked everything. I realized that it wasn't about the curriculum that you're learning. You don't have to learn that. It's about impressing the teacher. And the teacher is just a simple being that if you just impress what they want on their high spots, you pass. So I learned that at such a small age of like, it doesn't matter what you learn. Impress that person, that's your grade. It's like a huge problem with our system. But now reading and spend that time for myself in the mornings and then a meditation. I don't know why we do not teach this younger. Why? It blows my mind of why we do not teach meditation and self-love younger. I get our systems so screwed up and wants to keep them in the debt system. Like our government loves this kind of style. But why we do not teach this to our kids,
I know,
is mind-blowing.
And I loved seeing your stories the other day on Instagram when you were on that vacation with your family. And then there was a picture of your kids like meditating and you were showing them and teaching them. I had a guest on my podcast before where we talked about that. She's an advocate for mental health and advocating for some of those tools in like elementary school, junior high and high school for like, why don't we have a meditation class? Why don't we have a breathwork class? Why don't we have a emotional intelligence class or like a way to navigate your emotions and understand your intuition a little bit more? Is that like a huge passion of yours now to teach your kids?
It is. It comes from a different, I got to back up on that a little bit because if you would have talked to me 5.5 years ago when I started going through my divorce, where my ex-wife just took my kids from me. The one thing that, as you know, like means the most to me is she knew how to hurt me the most. So I go from a full-time dad to less than part-time dad. I see my kids for 2 hours on a Wednesday, and I'm driving there. So just lost all this time. And I was, sad to say, I was that same style of person. Like, what's this new age voodoo bullshit? Like, just what's come on, you're just some hippie. No, like, what is wrong with our culture? It is not that way whatsoever. And I finally feel like it's somewhat grasping, but it's not. It's still kind of like rolling a little bit more. But the reason, I don't know why we don't teach this and grow with it, because like I said, if you would have asked me before my marriage, or even like 5.5 years ago before, I would have been like, I'm not going to do this. And it wasn't until I met and went out of my comfort zone after being super, super down. I just had my kids ripped from me, being at home from being a dad, that I finally met a neighbor at a bar, and they're like, hey, are you part of this group? I'm like, no. And they finally threw this like different cooking group, a chili cook-off with these neighbors.
By the way, Bryson's an excellent cook.
Thanks.
Plug.
Yeah. So they threw this group gathering with some neighbors, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. No one there, right? Just like that being comfortable, uncomfortable situation, just go and go. Go meet some amazing people, talk to them. And then I get a couple people reaching out to me after the fact. And they must have sensed me like some aspect, right? Hey, you okay? You all right? Yeah, I'm okay. Just doing this. And they finally, my first exposure into new age, or I should say old age meditation and stuff, is sound bath. Like, hey, we're going to do a sound bath on Sunday. You want to come?
Did you know what that was?
Hell no. No way. Like, I was that typical dude. Just, there's so many people that can probably relate to this. And I was like, no, what's this shit? Like, but being so vulnerable at that time and growing with that, I'm like, okay, what's the worst to try it? So I went and tried it. And I'm like, holy shit, that was really impactful. I went into this weird kind of trance. I remember falling asleep because I kind of snoring, but I was actually visually seeing myself snore. Like, no one hears himself snore. I did. I'm like, where was I at? I still can't grasp that still. And that started me on, okay, there might be something else to this stuff. And then I went and did a Reiki and energy cleanse with another neighbor. She does this. And I didn't know what it was. Still new age, like, new kid, like, just whatever, voodoo, whatever. Didn't care. Go, and I'm laying there on the table, and I didn't know what Reiki was. And my buddy was saying, I'm going to do Reiki on you. Okay, whatever. I'm laying on the table. I honestly thought, actually, I've never experienced it. I've actually only said this maybe like 2 people. It's funny I'm saying this on a podcast now.
Right? Letting it out.
Yeah. So I was laying there on the table, and she was doing her energy cleanse, putting crystals, and I felt this pressure on my feet. Like someone grasping the bottom of my feet with their thumbs, the bottom of your, like, hands over the top of your feet, thumbs on the bottom, just grasping, but as this super, super, super loving care. Like, okay, this is Reiki. Because I didn't know. And I was just laying there with my eyes closed, didn't open my eyes, just going through the whole thing. Actually, I'm cleansing this chakra, blah, blah, blah. And she mentioned something. She's like, hey, your grandpa's here with you. Because she's kind of like a half medium too. I'm like, all right. And me, still new age, kind of like, whatever. Like, I believe there's energy and other stuff, but like, this is whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just going through it. And I still feel this nice, calming pressure on the bottom of my feet. I'm like, oh, that's my neighbor. He's touching my feet. That's Reiki. For some reason, halfway or more than halfway through this session of cleanse, I opened my eyes. Just the peek. All right, what's going on? Jared be at the bottom of my feet. And there was no one there.
Right? Because from what I understand, Reiki, you don't even touch the body.
No, you don't touch people.
Yeah.
But he's 15 feet away over here on this other couch. Like, what the hell? And I just had an epiphany there at that point. Like, whoa, there's something more to this realm that we don't know. Because I wasn't close to my grandpa at this time, but I know my grandpa supported, but it just didn't have a way. He's kind of like my dad in some aspects. And hopefully we get better with generations of more openness. Because me and my dad still don't even say, like, I love you or different things once in a while. We just don't. We know it, but we don't say it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's different. And that comes from generations. I mean, you look at older generation, like, man up is like them saying, I love you.
Yeah.
30, 40 years ago.
It's like, yeah, older generation, translation, dictionary, man up equals I love you equals you're worth it. You can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
So
crazy.
That was something that really started me down that energy path of like, okay, there's something else here.
Yeah.
To layer on top of everything I went through. And then layering, now coming back full speed to 2023 mid-year, like doing everything and restarting my company from scratch.
Congrats on that, by the way.
Thanks. Like it's been something else. Like I just had a demo earlier today and they're like, whoa, you have something. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I've known you for 100 years, but I've only known you for like a few months. So, but I feel like the last few months have been like, you've been busting your ass. You've gone through so much shit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perception, you've always believed in what you're creating. You've never, even though your first business partner, it didn't work out. The second time the dev wasn't doing what he was supposed to, like there could have been all the reasons for you to like, I don't know, ask yourself, like, is this even a freaking good idea? Like, I don't feel like you've ever thought that. You've always, at least in your communication with me, been like, no, like so excited when you talk about the capabilities of this software, like so much in belief of what you can. And then over the last few months, as you've gotten your investors, got the ball rolling, you're going to speak at an event coming up soon, like all these things, it doesn't seem, even in the depths of your pain and soul that we've shared with one another, like it doesn't seem that you've ever thought that that wasn't what you were supposed to be doing. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. But also talking deeper on that, I've had my self-doubts.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have that self-doubt. I mean, I have one in my journal right in front of you. Like there's a big page in here that says,
fuck doubt.
Fuck doubt.
I love that you brought your journal with you.
And
this is good.
That was a huge thing because also when you build something, I had this reality check a year ago when I finally launched my first version. I went to a sales pitch and I like botched it because I had so much of the one thing in the 4 agreements I like loved, but I assumed so much because I built something that I had so many assumptions. I did not have the proper sales pitch.
Like you assumed that they knew more than they knew, or what did you assume?
Or I assumed that they're going to know my software, what it needs to be, and not take it back to the basics. Not building it or not explaining it to what it was actually built for, and going back to like, here's your need, here's your want, here's the solution. I was way in the solution side and didn't come back to being like the basics of selling. So it was kind of like instantly flying over their head a little bit. I'm like, whoa. Like, Brysen, you got to take a step back. And that was a huge punch in the face a little bit. Like, whoa, I got to come back to my sales pitch. What if I was just hired on in this company? Just hired on a Vixo Link. Where would I start? How would I pitch this? I had to come back to all those different basics. And that was a huge awakening of like, all right, just because you build something, great. doesn't mean it's pitched that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's developed that way. So that was hard. That was a huge reality check.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to take it back just to share some personal experiences, because this is the first time you've shared some of these things. I know you said it's like more than 2 people you've told. So here we are on the podcast. But I had a similar experience with what you mentioned about Reiki, because my cousin does Reiki. And when I was living in San Clemente, I would go to his house. And even when I go back, I'll do sessions with him. But I had that experience. I was sitting in a chair. I had my eyes closed. And I could have sworn he had both hands on my shoulders, like pressing down, like almost borderline, like it felt good, like a massage, there was like a little squeeze to it. And I remember same thing, just kind of like peeking open, and he was on the other side of the room with some like metal things doing something in the corner. And I remember being like, oh, I could have sworn that your hands were on my shoulders. And he goes, oh, those are just my little helpers. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I said that was my first. That wasn't my first experience with Reiki. My first experience was when I lived in Austria. She had explained to me, like, I'm not going to put hands on you, whatever. This is all energy, blah, blah, blah. Great experience. Awesome thing. But then when I went to go see my cousin, it was more like for a healing experience. I don't think I specifically knew what modalities he was using and whatnot, but still same feeling where I like felt that presence and that pressure on my shoulders. And it helped me like relax my shoulders and drop down a little bit. And so that was super powerful. And I remember after that, just like, never seeing healing the same, never seeing it as like matter changing matter, like physical hands need to touch in order to feel this physical sensation on your body. And then to your other point of I love you and kind of that ancestral passed down, like my mom's parents never told her that like I love you. They never said that. And my parents always told me I love you, and I heard that a lot. But now I've like proactively, I say I love you to my grandparents now, like purposely knowing that like with some intention behind it, like knowing that they don't say that very often. I say that to them. And I remember doing it like at Christmas one time because they were giving out gifts, whatever. And I like hugged them and I was like, thank you. I love you. And I just noticed like the other people in the room kind of like, like, what did she just say to grandma and grandpa? Like that word exchange between them hadn't been said. And now I still say it to them. I actually just called my grandma and grandpa on Sunday when I was walking back from the gym. And I just like, oh, I'm going to call them. And my grandma will say it back to me now. She says, I love you. My grandpa won't, but I still say it to him. I'm still like, I love you. And he'll be like, okay, bye, and just like gets off the phone quickly. But I think it's beautiful that you said that, because I know that you tell your kids, I love you all the time. And like, you're such a hands-on loving dad in a new way. And not to say that there's anything wrong with the way our parents did things. No. It's just like they did the best with the tools that they had. But I resonate with that too. And now I kind of purposely like stir the pot a little bit, but I genuinely love them. So of course I'm not lying, but it's interesting to just, tap into that generation, that were born, my grandpa's 87, 88 now, my grandma 83. So it's like they were on that same dictionary that you mentioned before of like, get to work, do a good job, put forth your effort, build a business. Like that was the form of I love you and I care about you. But that really spoke to me too, because now I just am like, no, I'm just not going to not say I love you. But I don't think my grandpa's ever said it back to me, but my grandma, she'll say it back now, which is very interesting. So I'm like, cool. I cut that little tie or broke that chain just a little bit. And maybe I never will with my grandpa, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm still going to say it either way.
Can we also break the chain on this a little bit too and break this out of like, if you truly love someone, I get it. You have your friends like, hey, I love you. If you really love them, say, I love you. Put the damn I there.
Tell them.
That is the most simple concept, but means so much more, right?
Than like love ya or love you. Yeah, I feel it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you put that I love you compared to love you, way different. Isn't that I don't know. There's a way different concept of that.
It sits different with me too. And I think I probably choose my I love yous more wisely than my love yous now that I think about it. Because I really love a lot of people, and I'll tell people love you or love ya or something, but that I love you. I know everybody's different in their models of the world, but like I think we're on the same page with that. Like put the I when you really
make the initiative, like just like, hey,
I love you. Where did you, so you mentioned that you joined because you're very like, and I love this about you, like it's so good. Like you're very open, you're very vulnerable, you're very honest, you're very like, this is me. You're very unapologetic with where you're at and who you are. Like you even said my bank account was at negative $10.87. And I think that's more naked than most people will ever be willing to get. And I hope that people listening right now are just like, borderline in tears right now. Like me too. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Brysen, for like saying what we all have experienced. And you mentioned, that your upbringing wasn't as open and as vulnerable and things like that. And I know every time I have, and I shared this with you before, every time I have a male guest on the podcast that opens up and is vulnerable, I get so many messages, so many DMs, so many emails from a lot of men actually who are like, girl, you need to have more men on your podcasts. Like we need more men opening up, being honest, open, vulnerable, all the things. Did you set out to teach yourself that, or did it just sort of come with this like sound bath experience and then the Reiki, like, cause you are so open. And that's what I love. I think that's what's allowed us to be such deep friends so quick. Cause you're not like, dude, the weather's nice today. Or how about them Dodgers? We're very much like, dude, I read this book or I went to this breathwork class and I like had this profound experience. Like, did you set out to teach yourself this, or like, how does someone listening who's not there yet, like, what do they do?
Open up. This punched me in the face. And I guess that comes back to us make sure you're open to receive, because this punched me in the face.
Open to receive.
Wasn't that way. I was closed off. I was very guarded, very walled, defense, you name it, for years. Walls up. I still feel like I do have some walls, but I'm trying to break those down even more and like let that open us out, because I just did this mindset retreat and going there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go try this crazy thing with people and like just self-center and meditate with people. And went down there and I had this profound thing, because I know they're going to make me state my intentions, which I'm not a big public speaker. Don't really care to. Like, I know I'm on stage.
Oh, you mean like when you got there in the group, then you knew you were going to have to go around and be like, hi, my name's Brysen and here's why I'm here. Yeah.
I went down there. I'm like, okay, here's my intention. And I forgot what my intention really was going down there. That I was going to okay, this is what I planned. This is what I'm going to say, because it's robotic. I can say this really quick and it's going to sound good. And I go down there and I could not say it. I couldn't say the robotic. So now I'm saying the intention to how many people now? My intentions were to make empathy and vulnerability my strengths.
Preach.
So that I always thought those as weaknesses. And I don't know about our culture. I always thought those as weaknesses. They are not. They're really not. There are so many different strengths with those. And you can always go above and beyond with those. And that kind of leads into something else too. Is I was walking around the lake reading one of my books a few months ago. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Is we set these milestones in life. I don't know if it's our culture. Like, hey, once you graduate elementary school, it's good. Once you graduate high school, great. Once you get your degree, great. Once you achieve this, great. That's like your ceiling. Once you retire, great. You can just chill and relax. I think we have this kind of mindset that we can do that. That doesn't exist. That's the complete bullshit of our culture, 100%. Like, that does not exist. Like, once you realize there's no ceiling, it's only the ceiling you put on yourself. Like, there's no ceiling. It doesn't exist. Go. That changes your life dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter in any relationship, business, finance, family, it doesn't matter. There's no ceiling, just growth.
Absolutely. I echo everything that you said. What does making empathy and vulnerability your strength look like in action? Like, what are you doing when you are making it your strength?
I'm still working on that because it's still, but vulnerability, I tell my kids every time I go to bed, and just like we were talking about earlier, just, I love you. Not love you. No, it's I love you. And I show that.
Mm-hmm.
Tuck them in. I mean, how nice does that come? Like, we are so privileged. And if you don't have your kids full time or half the time or whatever, I walk in the middle of the night all the time just to go kiss my kids on the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Tuck them in.
Yeah.
And empathy, I struggle with empathy more because I'm very analytical. So that's a huge thing to me to try and work on, because I'm not saying I don't, but I struggle sometimes listening and receiving better,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like hurrying, like trying to like Commander A, pitch it back to him like, hey, no, you're screwing up on this. Like, no, I need to take that in more and really process that and then spit that back out in a better way that's more receptive. And that's, I think a lot of people struggle with empathy with that. That's not just me. There's a lot of people that don't know how to be empathetic.
Yeah.
In the right way.
And that receiving. And I can see that in you in a good way too. Like maybe you're highlighting some of the aggressive, fix it, this is your problem tendencies. But I also think you're very like loving and let me help you and let me fix this and let me offer you my opinion, or like grace, or come over to my house for a meal, or a lot of these things that I can see how that would be something that you're working on in terms of receiving and allowing people to help and heal. But one thing I do remember about you as we were talking about it one time, and I was like, yeah, maybe you were just sharing like some feelings of anxiety and stress that were going on in your life. And I was like, yeah, maybe breath work might be, a good idea. And I can, guide you through some breath work if you want to. And you're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And now we're at breath work together. And now you're showing up and doing that. And at the end of our breath work class, we're just like, whoa, what was that experience like? Or you could tell there's so much introspection happening. And in breath work, I mean, David is our instructor at Recoup Wellness. He's so awesome. And there's so much, I think, receiving in that, right? I think especially as I've gone multiple times to his class, like my subconscious mind starts to trust his voice even more. I start to surrender even more. And there's so much more receiving in that. But I just share that because like, I see that in you. You're like way more open to receiving. You're like showing up to breath work. You're doing the cold plunge. You're going to the yoga class, like doing all the things to like show up, and it's really, really inspiring, like really inspiring. I think I tell you this to your face. Well, I am to your face right now, but like off podcast, I tell you this too, but it's really awesome. It's really inspiring to see, because I don't think there's enough men doing it also who are willing to say, like you did, like you said, you're like, come over, let's podcast, like bring your microphone, like, let's do this. I want to share this story. You and I have talked a lot about this off the podcast before. And I just don't think there's enough men out there who are like, wait, I'm not receiving enough. I want to receive. I want to be open. I want to be empathetic. I want to connect. I want to learn, and I want to understand. And like, as someone who's like your cheerleader on the sidelines, it's really fucking fun to watch.
Yeah. I think men try to think they're tougher than what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because breath work, not easy. Let's face it. Breath work is work.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first did it, the first time I did it, I know a lot of us struggle with like anxiety and different things, whatever kind of culture we do it triggers some of that. But now doing it still triggers it, but guess what? You fight through it. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you. It's just something you push away, and you acknowledge and be aware, and you can actually control it. You can really control that anxiety, that panic, the different things. You can throw it into a different realm. And I don't think it's talked about. And it scared me the first time I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I do it, I challenge myself every time. I get it. I have a different personality, like growth. But if you're not comfortable doing it, practice. I mean, it just helps. It really does. Whether it comes to something so simple, but if you just practice and grow with it, it can help out a ton. And that doesn't even, you don't even like breath work. You can go try something else, but it just changes something. I mean, cold plunge, I know it's like a huge, feels like a fad, but it's not a fad. It's really not. You look at our ancestors, they cold plunged technically for centuries.
Yeah. Going into the cold water to like get their fish.
We have hot water. Right?
Yeah, you're right.
And that actually brings me to something else that I found super profound that I saw the other day. I think I just talked to you about this the other day, is depression. Depression, this monk was talking about it, and I sent it to you like a reel. And depression is really not real. It's something we've falsified. I mean, there's mental health, but depression, how we gauge it, is not there. Because if you look back in like middle ages or Spartan ages or even 400 years ago, it didn't exist because people were busy, active, moving. And it stopped people from feeling like depressed or this anxiety. But what really changed our culture is these damn screens. Because now you can sit in front of a screen, TV, watch some bullshit reality TV show, order DoorDash, order like mind suck, and then your mind and your body falls into this different state of being, and it's not healthy. That's our culture. And if you're not aware of that, it's totally fine doing that once in a while. But if you're not aware of that and you don't fall into that, you get into this complacency realm, which can really impact you and your family's life.
Yeah, it can really be easy to get sucked in like comparing or thinking that what someone shares here or there. And I like what you mentioned before, where you're like, in the morning, I don't like tap into social media, email, all those things. And I think the way you described it to me when you sent me that reel, or maybe what the monk said in the video, is like, we didn't have the luxury back then to just sit and scroll. And now we have this like luxury that's almost put us in this downward spiral of comparison and all the things and all the feels. And like you mentioned, we don't want to discount anybody's struggles with mental health, but we also want to highlight like, okay, and put your phone down and move and get outside and engage and put yourself out there and try again. And I think one thing you've done a really good job with, because you've introduced me to your friends and the people in your circles, is like you have really awesome people around you, really awesome people around you. And that says great things about them, but honestly, a lot more about you, because I came to your house on Halloween and I ride solo. You know me. I'm just like, oh, you want to go? You like invited me to a barbecue at your friend Becca's house. And I met, her friends through that, and just like super cool that you've been able to cultivate this environment of people who, in your process of learning how to receive even better, like you have great people pouring into you. And I think sometimes people get stuck because they're like, oh, I tried to be vulnerable and I tried to open myself up, but then I got shut down. But then I got told, suck it up and what, you're being this or that, especially guys, right, who maybe are opening up. So anybody listening, it might be time to up-level your circle. And I remember there was a quote from Nipsey Hussle, which was like this rapper. I think he was a rapper that passed away. And he said, he's like, if you look around at in your circle and you're not inspired, that's not a circle, that's a cage. And I think a lot of men and anybody, a lot of people, we have to look around and realize, okay, like, do I have a circle or do I have a cage? Do I have people that are putting ceilings where they don't exist in my life, or I'm allowing them to put ceilings in my life? Or am I like running up the same wall and hitting my head over and over? Like I'm trying to be vulnerable, but maybe you're trying to be vulnerable to the same people over and over and over again that aren't ready to like be there yet. And so if anybody listening feels that way, I often tell my clients this, like, go put your ass where your heart wants to be. That's a title of a really good book that I read by Stephen Pressfield. It's like, okay, and if your circle you realize is more of a cage, you have to go out and find those people.
Yeah.
Where are they? Are they at breathwork class? Are they at meditation class? Are they, in this men's group or whatever that you joined? And I know a few weeks ago you went to this healing group, this meditation place, and you didn't know anyone. And we were in the car one day and you were like, oh my gosh, I don't know anyone. I'm going to go there. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like what, I don't know what it is, where it is, how it is. I'm just going to go. I just know I need to be there. So sometimes it's less blaming and complaining about people that won't allow you to be vulnerable, and more like, as I would say, like put your big girl panties on and like go out and like find those people. Like, where are they hanging out? Put yourself in those uncomfortable positions. Because when you do that, it's kind of like, and you have kids, I don't know if they're scared of the dark or they've ever been, but it's kind of like turning the light on and lifting up the bottom of the bed or opening up the closet and being like, see, there's no monster in there. It was just like a little fuzz, and the way the light was catching it, it made it this like big, profound thing. But really, it's like, it's nothing. It's just your own ceiling that you've put on yourself. And I just want people listening to like go out there, do the thing, join the group, go to the men's group, the women's group, the circle, the healing center, the church, the yoga place, like whatever you feel like where your people are. Because once you have the awareness of the cage, whose fault is it now that you're still there?
Correct. Awareness is the biggest key with that. You acknowledge that huge. Awareness is huge. And I live by a quote that I did about 6-7 years ago. And it's always hard, but be comfortable, uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. It changes your life no matter what. Okay, I don't want to go to this group tonight. I don't want to do this breathwork class tonight. I don't want to do this super retreat, or maybe I don't even want to do like a journal or something simple at night. Do it.
Do it. Move that needle a little bit. One thing I want to, because I know you're going to go pick up your kids here soon, and I want to honor your time, and I want to kind of land the plane with them. I love how you parent. I love that you keep, I love that you keep it real with your kids. I love that there's candy everywhere available to them. And when I've babysat them before, they're like, can I have a treat? I'm like, sure, have what you want. And then your daughter will come up and be like, okay, well, I'm going to have a Rice Krispie and I'm only going to have half, because they just like know that things are available and not off limits, and you're very open and things like that. But growing up as someone who maybe didn't have the vulnerable, open, I love yous and a lot of those things, how do you want to pass on this the vulnerability and empathy to your kids? How do we teach the younger generation that? What seeds are you planting in them now so that they don't have to wait? Like, I think about my niece, she's 5. Like, I don't want her to have to wait till she's 30 to know what breath work and emotional intelligence are. And she won't, because when I go home, we do breath work and different fun things together. Like, how do you do that? Inspire parents listening. I'm not a parent, so I can't, preach.
That's tough. That's really tough, because I come from a different place so we'll take a bigger step back. This is another thing I've probably only told a handful of people.
Welcome to the mic.
Yeah. So waking up, or growing up, growing up, my parents were always like cheap. Like, we never had good candy. We never had stuff. If it was there, we'd just consume the hell out of it. And then I went to my cousin's house. My cousin's house was very different. They always had like the best candies readily available. They didn't eat it. They'd have it once in a while, but it wasn't something they were gonna like strive and get. And I would go to their house and be like, "Oh, you have this stuff," and I'd eat the hell out of it because it's something I didn't have. And I realized that at such a young age, of like 12 to 13, like, why am I doing this? And why does my cousins not do this when they have that exposure? And I don't know what it turns like. It's something with our culture, something in our heads that if it's there and you acknowledge it and be aware of it, it's okay. If it's not, sometimes if it's not available, that scarcity, you grab on that and you just suck it in as much as you can. And I think we do that in a lot of different aspects of life. Like if it's there, I'm taking as much as I can right now. I'm filling my bag full right now. And I pass it to my kids like, you know what? There's good candy everywhere. And they have this permission for themselves and from me. Hey, should I have this much? No. Or Daddy, can I have this? Yeah. And given that full exposure, showing it out there helps. I think it helps out in a huge culture to other aspects of life of like, here, you have so much of something. It can be a bad thing. I think one book was Ed McManus we were talking about?
Yeah, Erwin McManus.
McManus, sorry.
Or no, you're right, Edwin McManus. Maybe it is Ed.
I think
Either
he has
way.
a sister, brother.
I can't remember.
He refers to it in his book. But anyways.
We'll figure it out and put it in the show notes.
He talked about a little bit of if you don't have it, you're going to go after it more. And I'm like, okay, if I put it out there, it's not going to be a bigger deal.
Like not so off limits.
No. And it also teaches them self-control. Because now they'll come to me and you, and for anyone else here, like, hey, can I have another candy? I'm going to have 6 pieces. I'm like, all right, cool. We're not filling ourselves full of this crap, but it's still around. And I don't want to try and hide that because you're not going to get away from everything we have in our culture. If you try and do that and hide so much of, I got to stay away from gluten, GMOs, to who knows.
Yeah, or this TV show or this music or this. I had great parents, but they were very strict with like certain things like that. And then the first thing I would do, I would go to my cousin's house and put in I wasn't allowed to listen to Coolio. And my mom and dad, I think they listened to my podcast. So side note, I would go to my aunt's house and the first thing I would do would put in the Coolio CD and be like, Gangster's Paradise. That would be the song I would listen to because it was so off limits. And so I love that about you. That's why I asked the question, because I'm like, nothing's really off limits. The topics that you share with your kids are not really off limits. You just are very open so that it's always available. And then they can pick and choose what kind of resonates with them as they grow up instead of feeling like, oh, this I can't have, this is bad, this is good. It's kind of like this all is. And here's the outcome of, let's say, if you eat too much candy in whatever metaphorical sense that might look like, and you choose.
Yeah. And I grew up, we'll go deeper on this for a second. I grew up in the Mormon church.
Okay.
Holding every presidential, priesthood, you name it, highest thing you could do. Because I showed up. Mm-hmm. Just my work ethic on that. Just I showed up. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they give you like, all right, you got to do this. You're a deacon. You got to pass this out. You got to prepare the sacrament. Like all this other shit. And it's part of that culture of prepping. But I don't want to feed that to my kids, and I let them choose their own aspect and their own lives with it. Because if they want to go try anything, try it. Try something. Mm-hmm. Try. Like I think that's something they shut down our culture so much is trying, because it's either guilt or shame or something that's not going to be just really, I don't know. They feel confined. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah, it just seems like there's not like, this is right, this is wrong, this is the path, this is not the path. It's kind of like, okay, well, you go down that path and try, and then always know you can turn back around and try a new path if you want to, maybe in a way that you didn't feel like you had when you were in the church. You probably felt like this is the path.
Well, and I was taught that way.
Yeah.
You're growing up that way. Like you're taught, this is the path, blah, 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 blah. This is what you have to do. I'm like, no, like this doesn't make sense. And sorry for religious people on here, but I don't think.
You can share whatever you want. This is your truth, Brysen. So if people are triggered, that's their thing to work on.
Yeah. And I love people that have their own religion. What your beliefs are, it's great. But my biggest thing is I think technology and science will ultimately destroy most religions in the future. Because it's going to come back to the basics again, what we were talking about at the very start of this podcast, of talking about inner energy and growth. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to some corporations that are making this tithing that are investing in these multi-stock marijuana companies that they don't even believe in. Like, no, we've strayed off the path so far. I think Dr. Joe even talks about this. Like, we've strayed off the path so far with politics to religion to so many aspects. And that comes down to even like our own personal level of where we are with like finances to health to religion ourselves, of what we really believe in. I think we stray off that path a lot. And we got to really, there's no way to fix it. It's more awareness, right?
And just, I think, having the conversation, which is my point of like, whatever you feel like you want to share and be open to sharing, it is. Because I think the lack of being open to have a conversation and just hearing what somebody might be processing, I think can be a huge problem. It's just kind of like, we only want to hear what is confirming of our own beliefs. We only want to listen to it if it is in alignment with what we think and believe. And I have no problem sitting and talking and listening and hearing and seeing people who say things and believe things that I'm like, okay, yeah, try it on, doesn't fit. Okay, you can wear it.
But
you know,
our culture is so engaged. So we'll go down a different aspect of that a little bit. Is our culture? I blame this on our media. They've gauged us to be more like black and white, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're left, you can't be right, or I hate you. Like, I can't. No, there's not. That's not the way. There's a middle ground. Like, I respect your opinion. That's not what I feel. We can be friends. But that's how our culture and society and media is really dividing us more and more, of being like, no, you can't be friends with this person that believes in this. No way. Yeah. Come on over. Like, cook you a good meal. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, come over and eat. Believe what you want. Yeah, agreed there too. I think that's why it was kind of something I not struggled with, but I was talking about this to a friend of mine. I was like, yeah, if I brought like all of the people that I'm friends with and I've met, which I have done, like all together, they're all like very different, and some will get along and some might not, and some might mesh and some might not, but that's okay, because I think that says, yeah, I don't know, I like that about myself. I like that I can hold space and be friends with people who, you know, like this and don't like this, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you're all welcome to my party, unless someone's like super disrespectful to somebody else or unkind or like dishonest or just like, yeah, I think we can all like spot the knot, or at least I can spot the knot and be like, okay, no. And as long as people are just welcoming and open and, you know, have that ownership of who they are, that's cool for me. As long as nobody's like, you know, throwing physical or metaphorical blows at one another, I'm cool. But I like that about me. I like that about you too, where it's kind of like everybody is pretty much welcome. Like, you can kind of believe and be exactly who you are, come as you are welcome.
Yeah. And those aren't your genuine people. So you keep them like on the outer rims.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, these aren't my people. These aren't in my circle.
Yeah. Keep them on the fringe.
Yeah.
We don't always have to tell them, I hate you. I don't think that's the,
or
you did this wrong, or push them away.
Like, hey, you can't come to the party because you believe in something like this. No.
Yeah.
It's just more, your circle, you want to trust your circle, and you know who that is.
Yep.
And own that is. Own that your circle, own your circle.
Yeah. Meet them where they are.
And that circle can change.
It does, and it will.
Yeah. Sometimes you can have someone inner circle that may just, for anything, just go outside the circle. And that could be a lot of reasons, but it doesn't mean you have any animosity towards them. It's like, okay, this is where we have a different path.
Yeah.
Choose your path. We all have that ability now.
Well, I can say that I'm very grateful that you're part of my circle.
I am too. Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you said, let's podcast, bring the microphone over. Let's do this. I'm thankful for your openness and your vulnerability and your authenticity. I'm grateful that you've brought me into your circle and introduced me to some awesome people. And I'm so grateful, because I am so not a weather and sports and surface level conversation person. And so for those of you listening, this is literally how Brysen and I talk all the time. We just have a microphone plugged in now. Yep. Thank you for you. Anything else you want to share, or do you feel complete?
No, I feel complete. This is great. I brought this up only because I don't know. I had this epiphany, like, we should do a podcast.
Yeah, you said it. You
And
called it out.
You're like, you looked at me like this gazed look in your eyes. You're like, yeah, I didn't think that'd be an option with you. Like,
yeah. You opened my eyes. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
So we share a virtual assistant. Shout out to Tells.
What's up, Tells? We love you.
Tells is the best. And she actually mentioned it before she even knew that we were actually going to do this. I was like, hey, you guys should do a podcast.
Yeah, I texted her yesterday. I was like, hey, Tells, Brysen and I are going to do a podcast tomorrow. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Is there anything I can do to support you?
Yeah,
I said, no, we're good. We'll just plug in the microphone and go. And when it's time she runs my podcast, Instagram, blog, all those things. So when it's time, she'll listen to it and she'll get to enjoy the conversation we had. But I just love her. She's so sweet. And I'm happy that we get to share resources because she's phenomenal and she helps us so much.
I know, that was awesome. It was such like I said, frequencies attract people that you need in your life when you need them. Mm-hmm. We definitely have that.
Yeah.
And with like even meeting Kara through you, like we definitely, it feels so uncomfortable that people don't know that exists, but it does.
Yeah. It does.
Trust the process with that and it will happen. And you will attract the right people in the right time. Might not feel it always, but it does. And that's the path that's grown me the most and continue to grow. Like there's no ceiling anymore.
Go team. Go team.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so stressful to think about for the last like week or so. Oh,
you mean preparing for the podcast? You're all nervous.
I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm not a good sleeper. So I wake up in the middle of the night, just super analytical, thinking, all right, what am I going to say?
Well, what do you think now that it's almost done? Are you happy?
I'm happy.
Are you as nervous as you thought you were going to be?
Still, because I'm like, okay, do I want to go hear my voice again? Or should I just let this like die?
You got to work with that. That's for sure something from podcasting and being on camera for many, many years. At first you're like, that's what I sound like. Or like, I remember being like, that's what I look like when I talk on camera, but nobody cares. And everyone's excited. I promise.
Okay. I love it. It's been the best.
See you guys at the next episode. Thank you, Brysen.